Hi everybody, welcome back to Art on the Creek. My name is Anne. We're in my home studio in Parker, Colorado, and I'm really glad that you've tuned in today because I am finally going to pick up my great colored pencil comparison again. I started this farther back than I care to remember. It's just too much fun to get other stuff in ahead of these, but I'm still trying to find out what my favorite brand of colored pencil is. So a lot of you will just use colored pencils to augment your watercolor or in other mixed media work, or maybe you are an adult coloring book artist and you really like to do that. Maybe you like to make cards and use colored pencils there. Personally, I love colored pencil art, and that is one of my goals, to become more proficient at that. So, without further ado, this week's entry in the great competition is Holbein versus Windsor Newton. So, let's get to it. The reason that I started this comparison was because I was starting to get tired of the crumbs that Prismacolor left behind. So I have here a couple of brands. I've got several that I'm going to compare, and that will be all down in the description, but I added this one. I kind of snuck this one in, the Windsor Newton. Of course, they're a wonderful art supply brand. I love their watercolors. I've used their acrylics, their oils, all extremely high quality. And Holbein, I love their watercolors and their gouache. So these are all brands that I think should be really nice for colored pencils. So when I use colored pencil paper, I typically like to use a hot press paper. So I've got my Arches hot press watercolor paper out. And I am using a Stillman & Burn Novus series trio sketchbook here because I love this black paper. Let's test the white pencils first and see what the opacity is like. Let me just get a gel pen here so that I can continue our list. You can see so far we've tested the Caran Pablos, the Caran Luminance, Prismacolor Premier, Prismacolor Verithin, Lyra Rembrandt Polycolor, and the Blick Studio unfortunately did not have white in their set of 12. That's kind of my bottom line here, is a set of 12. So I just haven't tested that one from Blick Studio. And the Windsor Newton Studio is the one that's coming up now, and followed by the Holbein Artist set. Now, on the left box there, I've got light pressure, and then on the right-hand box, I've got hard pressure. So far, in looking at the list, the top three are definitely the most opaque. In fact, the Luminance and the Prismacolor Premier really are pretty much running neck and neck. And really, some days I think the Luminance has more opacity, and some days I think it's the Prismacolor Premier. So it might really just depend upon how the light hits it. Let's take a look at these Windsor Newton colored pencils here. Now, they are Windsor Newton Studio, which typically means student grade, but I'm not sure on that quite yet, and I will have information for you here, either in text at the bottom of the page or at the end of the video. But what it says about these pencils is that they're definitely wax-based. The Windsor Newton Studio Collection colored pencils are soft, and that is true. They blend easily, and the high-quality cores mean they're beautifully smooth and responsive to use. And that should be if you're doing heavy layers or working on delicate shading. They are wax-based, like I said, with a soft core. They're more opaque and perfect for laying down coverage. And they do have a lot of pigments in them. They are light fast. They have a high light fast rating based on ASTM shading. And you can see here the core is about, well, I don't know if you can see, but I will tell you, the core is about 3.8 millimeters, which is, I have found, pretty standard in the industry, although there is some variance. At any rate, that light fastness goes with the ASTM testing, which means your work will not fade over time. They do have break-resistant cores, and I found that to be particularly true. I kind of put these through a little bit of different tests, and I did like the way that they performed. I'm going to correct myself. The core is actually 3.7 millimeters. It's a cedar wood core painted, and the color of the pencil is, of course, on the end. And now let's take a look at the Holbein pencils in comparison just with that information that we have so far. So according to the manufacturer, these are an oil-based colored pencil. They have 3.8 millimeter cores. They do feel instantly a little bit more sturdy, and right away they kind of just feel better. I don't know. They're I would feel like these are a little bit better than the Windsor Newton, but I'm not sure. For an oil-based pencil, though, I expect them to have no crumbs. I just want you to see how much bigger they are than the Windsor Newton. The Windsor Newton's a little bit more delicate. And these have the Holbein logo on there. It's nice and big so you can read it in gold. Plus it has all of the color information, light fastness information. And then on the inside of the lid there's a lot of good information too. It tells you what's available in which set. So for instance, in this set of 12, you would look on the dot chart there to see what you have, and then you could go in and purchase them individually, or see what you wanted to get a different set to see if there would be any repeats. Some of the sets do not overlap, so that's kind of good to know. So comparing the whites there, I feel like the Holbein really surpassed the Windsor Newton. But let's do some other tests here. Let's just swatch them out and let's see what's going to happen. Now I'm going to speed this part up because I want you to see the color build in quick time rather than real time. So bear with me here as I continue to just build this swatch sheet. Again, I'm using 100% cotton Arches hot press paper for this purpose. And I really like this paper for colored pencil. It's so soft to use. It's just got a nice velvety texture. I did put a little swatch of white on there, but of course you can't see it on the white paper, so it's just kind of a moot point. I'm kind of going up and down a total of 4 times, I believe, on each of these swatches with a medium pressure. So this would be about, let's just call it our baseline average. Let me take this off of here, and then on the back, now we're going to go through a rainbow blend using a firm pressure. Now, the thing I noticed with these was that they were not easy to blend. The blue over the red there did make a nice purple, but in the other cases, it was really difficult to tell where the color stopped and started and where the blend started. Now, of course, you're probably never going to be blending purple and brown or purple and green, but in this rainbow order, that's what I wanted to do. So let me slow this down and I'll show you this part in real time. In looking at this really closely, of course, you can see, I'm sorry, there's a shadow on the right, but you can really see a lot of that wax sheen that comes up and the crumbs. To me, that's a substantial amount of crumbs. And the problem with colored pencil, of course, you can tap it off, but when you brush it off, it does leave pigment trails, little bits here and there. Now, you can definitely erase that. So it's not a game changer. But here's something that I found to be a little bit frustrating. Now, I have not filled up the tooth of the paper yet. I'm trying to go through and burnish on top of there with the white colored pencil. It's making very little impact. If I were to do this with the Prismacolor or the Luminance or any of the others that I've tested so far, I have been able to definitely show that there's a color change going over this hard pressure rainbow stripe that I've done on all of these tests. When I go over it with a white colored pencil, you can definitely see the white colored pencil. It does show up a little bit more on the black here where I can blend and get it gray, but it's just difficult to do, frustrating, not enjoyable. So let's see if we're going to let's take a close-up look at this too, and you can kind of see it's just very lackluster. I mean, you can kind of see it in there, but it really doesn't do anything for it. Now, granted, this is probably something you will never do, but in a test, there are some real-life scenarios that would do something like this. So right now, I'm just kind of with these particular colored pencils. So let's brush off the crumbs and let's move on to our next test. So speeding this up again, we'll do the same thing that we did with the first set, the Windsor Newton set. We'll do it with the Holbein set as well. As far as ease of use on these tins, the pencils were really easy to get in and out of the Holbein, or excuse me, the Windsor Newton set. But this corrugated papery liner that they have in here kind of made it difficult to get these pencils out. I had to tip down one end and lift up with the other end, which was fine. But then this pencil, where the yellow one is, it kind of grabs onto the rim of the tray. Just something to notice. I mean, of course, it's not going to inhibit your use of it. It's just, I'm writing down the light fastest information here on these. It just doesn't make it as fun to use. But, you know, once you take it out and lay it down, if you're going to continue to use it, you know, you'll be just fine. Let's kind of compare these two color swatches here in real time just so you can kind of see. The yellows are very similar. The oranges are similar. There's a peach in the Windsor Newton set, but not in the Holbein set. The blues are a little bit different. The green, the dark green is similar. The light green is quite different, actually. Purples, one's cool, one's warm, and then of course the blacks are the same. You get more browns in the Holbein set and just the one brown in the set of Windsor Newton 12. So some little comparison notes to make there in case you're interested in purchasing just a set of 12. What I'm going to do here now is test the Holbein in using that firm pressure, and we'll do another rainbow spread with this one. So once again, we'll speed this up and kind of see how these blend. Now remember, these are oil-based pencils. The other ones are wax-based. I've always felt that that was a little bit, you know, a lot of artists put a lot of emphasis in that, and I think it really just goes to use whichever one you like, whichever one works for you. In general, oil-based pencils tend to be more scratchy and harder, but these were not at all. I found these extremely easy to use. Perhaps the thing that we would notice first off is that you don't have that wax sheen. Now, all colored pencils are kind of a combination between wax and oil, and then if they are an oil-based pencil, they're just predominantly oil. Wax-based pencil, predominantly wax. These had good coverage. I didn't have any complaints at all. There was some crumbs, but not a lot. So all these little things are just so important to consider, because when you're really using these in an artwork piece, you need them to perform in a very specific way. Now notice how this white is going down with a burnish, and you can really see it. You can see the pastel tones of these colors come up. I like to use white to burnish. It really does add some extra dimension and texture layers to your work, and this is something that is a pretty common practice in colored pencil. So I wanted to definitely try it on these to make sure that it was a technique that I'd be able to use. And I definitely like this particular technique much better on the Holbein. So we'll hold this up here to the camera and brush off the crumbs first, kind of clean my area a little bit. And let's compare the two. Now I've got the Holbein on the top, and here you can see when I did burnish, you can see that it did smear the color. So that is something that's important to note. You want to be very careful with your coloring on these, and in this test I intentionally was not. I wanted to see what would happen if we went in there with full force. So as much as the white pigment on the Holbein showed up, there's some smearing. For the Windsor Newton, not so much. Now this next footage is going to really be sped up here, but I wanted to draw something for you with this color set, and I chose a Peony, and I did not like it. So I've got this on 20 times the speed, but I wanted to leave it in here and show it to you because I want you to see these pencils in action when you're using quite a few colors. The test that I will show at the end, towards the end rather, is a test of just some color wheel, and I think it will highlight I'm going to say issues, although it's, no, I'm going to say features. It will highlight the features that I experienced when I was coloring this, this Peony here. Now, granted, this drawing is nothing to write home about. I just wanted to see what these would be like to play with. And I'm less than thrilled. I'm just going to say that right now. When I'm using these, it feels like I almost have to fight it a little bit to get the pigment to go down. So let's just start on the Holbein side, and let's see if we can kind of replicate the same sorts of colors that we used, a little bit of the same coloring methods. You know, the sets are just slightly different, so some of these colors are going to turn out a little bit different, but you know, using either a purple or a blue to get the shadows in, starting out that leaf with a light green, yellow, putting shadows in with blue, coming back in with green. You know, just all of these basically the same ways that I colored these two flowers. And I wasn't really thrilled with this one either. And I was starting to get so frustrated because I felt like these should have been a lot more fun to color with both of these brands. So here's the final, and I'm thinking that honestly, I think I really need some Gamsol. Now the one on the right is Windsor Newton. the pigments look noticeably more vibrant to me. I felt like going in, it wasn't going to turn out that way. I've got the same amount of layers on here. I've got the same amount of pressure in both of them. But the one on the right, I like the laydown of those pigments better. And I thought, maybe it's my drawing. Maybe it's the way that I approached this, because before I had one drawing and I divided it in half. So I was just really concerned that perhaps I had done something to skew the results in this test. So let's do some Gamsol and let's see what happens now. Once again, I'm going to speed this portion up because you can really see the change take place in fast time. One thing I want you to notice, the right flower really turned out beautifully, but the left flower is kind of foggy. And I think you can really see that here when I pull it up to the camera. You'll be able to see the difference. I was just kind of really shocked, and I thought, okay, well, maybe it is something I did. You can see a lot of the residue that's left from the crumbs going on there. Now, I didn't use any glassine to cover when I was to cover my white areas, but look how foggy this one looks on the left, the Holbein, compared to that one on the right, the Windsor Newton. The colors look bright and vibrant, and on the left, they just looked better before I used the Gamsol, and I've never experienced that with colored pencil before. So I'm going to try again. I'm just making 3 circles on the paper here, and we are going to do some Windsor Newton on the right-hand side and Holbein on the left. And all I'm going to do is do some very simple blends using the primaries here. I'm going to start with the yellow, and laying these down, the color laydown is really just fine. The one thing that I prefer about the Windsor Newton pencils among these 2 brands is that the pencil doesn't wear down as quickly. I was very surprised that if the Holbein is said to be an oil-based pencil, it really wore down quickly, and I had a lot more breakage with the Holbein pencil than I did with the Windsor Newton. For that reason, I like the Windsor Newtons better. Now, once again, I only have the set of 12, so I really am limiting my comparison to just a very few colors here in the palette. But as you can see, this red, yellow, blue goes down just fine. And now I'm kind of doing 2 different purples. Here we'll do one that's more of a blue purple and one that is more of a red purple. One's cooler and one's warmer here on this side. And I'm just putting as many layers on as I can until it appears that the paper can take no more. And we'll go ahead and do that with the green over here. We'll mix some green by mixing the blue over the yellow, coming back in with the yellow and getting these all blend together so that we've got kind of a blue-green and then a nice leaf green or a spring green. And we'll do the same thing here to create an orange. We will create a more yellowish orange and a more reddish orange. And I thought that this way we could really see how these colors perform, how they blend. And I'm going to go over the actual primary tones just a little bit more, just to make sure I've got as much possible pigment down as I can with these before I bring out the Gamsol. Right now, I feel like the Windsor Newton colors are much more delicate, and now you can see I'm going in with the Gamsol and creating these blends. I really enjoyed this process. I didn't have any trouble with it. I thought that these blends worked really well with Gamsol. Now, one thing to note is there is a significant price difference in these, and that will be evident here in this test with the pigment laydown. I'll go over all of that in the description below so you can kind of see it written out. The Holbein pencils you can restock individually, but the Windsor Newtons appear to only be sold in set format. What I want to do now in the center is use one color that's fairly similar to both of them. And I decided to use the orange, and then we'll just blend those out with Gamsol and see. So I'm just putting layers of orange on here. But let's look at that. Look at the color wheel there over on the right for just a minute. And I hope that you can see how using the Gamsol to blend out those layers of colored pencil really does kind of help to smooth things out. Now, what it has not done on this particular test is eliminate the pencil lines altogether for a really smooth finish. Now, granted, I am 100% willing to admit that that might be the fault of the artist. These are the little techniques that I'm still trying to master in colored pencil, but as we go over here on the Holbein side, you'll see, I think the big thing to notice right away is that the pigment laydown is just a little bit more intense. Now, these, remember, are supposedly oil-based pencils. I had to sharpen them a lot more than I had to sharpen the Windsor Newton. I don't dislike these pencils. I think they're beautiful. I love the way they feel. I like the thickness of them. As far as that goes, I like these better than the Windsor Newton. They're just a little bit easier for me to hold. And something about the texture of the lacquer, I feel like I've got a better grip on this than I do on the other pencil. The other pencil is more of a matte finish. And for my hands and my dry skin, it's just easier to hold on to if I've got this lacquered finish. Very easy for me to read the colors. I also feel like the Winsor Newton colors, you know, they just have names like green and red and blue. So there's not a lot of assurance for me as an artist that, is it cobalt blue? Is it phthalo blue? Is it, French ultramarine blue? Which blue am I using? I'm using true blue on the Winsor Newton side. And again, this is just the set of 12. So in the other sets, they might break that nomenclature down a little bit more traditionally. But in this little set here, they've just used basic color names like you would find on a crayon. Here on the Holbein set, we've got some very definite names that are familiar to artists. We've definitely got a cobalt blue, a carmine, and leaf green. These kinds of colors that you know instantly what it is that you should see from the laydown. Now, right away, you can see these colors are incredibly vibrant, but look at the yellow area right next to the green there. I did get a little bit of smudging, and the crumbs came off when I was blending with the pencil. Now, I did not use any hard pressure on any of this. I used medium pressure throughout. On that color wheel of the Holbein on the left, the yellow area there where it's darker, right down next to the green, some of that pigment jumped over into the yellow. And I didn't remove it because I wanted to see what would happen. And I really got some big smudging happening. Now, just on this big circle here with the orange, I like both sides. You can kind of see here how the colors are a little bit different. So you can really see on the Holbein, you can see a lot of pencil lines. Of course, that could be me, that could be the artist. Like I said, I want to be better at colored pencil, but you can really see the smudges on the yellow there. The orange looks absolutely fine. Here, we've still got a lot of textural lines from the paper. So that tells me, sorry, that's out of focus there just a little bit, but that tells me that perhaps there's not as much pigment laid down. I asked my daughter which one she liked better. She is also an artist, and she said the one on the left looked much richer. Because I wanted a different opinion in real light. I don't know what's showing up on the camera for you guys, and of course everybody's color monitor is different. But the Holbein is on the left, the Winsor Newton is on the right. And here is one more look at the opacity of the whites that we have so far. So if you want to take a screenshot of that, go right ahead. This list will continue to grow, and there are other artists out there too that talk about different opacities of white colored pencils. But right now, I'm thinking the Holbein, the Prismacolor, and the Luminance are all great. Here's the final photo of the laydown. I'm kind of at a loss between these two. I can tell you one thing definitively, neither one are my favorite. I liked each one for different reasons, but neither one of these I don't think will be my go-to. The Winsor Newtons tend to be a little more delicate in nature, and the Holbeins, I had a hard time keeping them neat. So those are my conclusions there. I hope that's helpful to you guys, and we will continue to let this playlist grow. I will put all of the price information and playlist information down in the description below with some affiliate links in case you are interested in getting any of these. And I will see you guys next time. Happy arting, everyone. Have a great day. Bye now.